Hi everyone, my name is Kai and I had the pleasure of being on this podcast today. What we talked about today is my PhD experience and how I became a mathematical biologist doing a PhD at the University of Adelaide. And today I shared many experiences of what the PhD journey is like and where that can take me into the future, as well as how I got to my PhD and some of my life experiences and what I have learned along the way.
All right. Well, Kai,
Yes.
I think we can get started with the episode.
Absolutely, let's roll.
So first of all, I wanted to say, thank you for coming on.
Yep.
I'll tell the audience a little bit about, and you, I don't think you know as well, what happened with this exchange of how we started this episode.
Sure.
Essentially, we posted Ben's episode, and I saw that you followed the page on LinkedIn.
Yep.
And I just got a notification that this person followed our page, Kai.
Yeah.
And I clicked on your profile, and the first thing I read is mathematical biology.
Yeah, that's right. That's
and
right.
I'm like, what on earth is that? I have to find out.
It's
so
a
I
hook,
messaged you
right?
straight away.
It's a hook.
It works.
Yeah, it's a hook. Yeah, it's like every storyline has a hook, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I messaged you straight away, and I'm like, we got to get you on.
Yep.
Talk about what you do and your PhD. So I'm really excited to hear. So, I'm spoiling a little bit, but if you want to start, Kai, could you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure, absolutely. So, I'm a mathematical biologist by trade. So what I do every day is I use mathematics to understand things in biology. And how I do that is through my PhD. I'm currently a third-year PhD student at the University of Adelaide, working under the guidance of Ben Binder and Ed Green. And what I do is I'm trying to understand how cells grow, in particular how yeast cells grow.
What cells, sorry?
Yeast.
Yeast
you know,
cells,
they have the stuff that makes your bread and wine.
That's right, yes.
And yeah, so that's what I'm super passionate about. And aside from my research and work, I'm super passionate about teaching as well and communicating mathematics in a way that makes people fall in love with it.
Yeah.
So that's one of my few passions in life, mathematics and communication.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. Could you tell me something that our audience probably just clicked on this video and they are ready for a really good episode.
Yep.
Why should they keep watching? What do you think something they will learn?
Is my passion for what I do every day and how I can make the most uninteresting things such as mathematics come to life. Like turn something from black and white binary into color.
Amazing.
That's what I'm here for.
Let's go.
Yeah,
I'm keen to hear what you have to say.
Yep.
So you obviously talked a little bit about your work and what you do.
Yep.
We'll get to that soon.
Yep.
But let's just take a step back and
Absolutely.
talk a little bit about your life.
Yeah.
So were you born in Australia?
No, I wasn't.
No. So could you tell us your story of how you got to Australia?
Yep.
How you got to essentially just up to the point where you started the PhD?
Absolutely.
What were you doing to the
So yeah, absolutely. I would love to share with you and the audience. So I grew up in a country town in China. I was born there in a small town, and I came to Australia when I was 7. I moved to a small town outside Adelaide called Murray Bridge. I grew up there, did my primary school and high school there, and during my high school, I had some wonderful mathematics teachers, and that really inspired me and to pursue mathematics because one, I loved it, and the teachers were really supportive of me, and so that brought me to university. I studied a Bachelor of Mathematical Sciences Advanced, majoring in applied mathematics, and 3 years go by, and at the end of my 3 years, actually, going back to high school, right? You know, and high school, they tell you to write like a memo, like what you see yourself doing in 10 years. You know what I wrote?
What did you write?
I wrote, in 10 years' time, I want to be a university professor and want to be remembered for being a kind and supportive person who loved mathematics.
Wow.
And I am how many years into that? I am 6 years in, and the dream is going strong.
Let's go.
Yeah. So
I've never heard you're the first person I've met outside of high school that said they want to be a university professor. I've never met anyone like that before.
No.
Well, what you said was really interesting about your high school.
Yeah.
And what a lot of feedback we get, and because we started this podcast because we were passionate about technology and we want to get people to know about technology because we think it's really important in the future that people know what technology is and how it works, right?
Yes.
And so we're very focused on STEM. We want to make sure that everyone understands how things work, and especially at a young age. You mentioned that you had really supportive high school teachers.
Yes.
In mathematics.
Yes.
Could you talk about why you think they were so good, and what essentially, if you could give a tip to teachers out there
yes.
that are studying, what made them different, and how could they be better at communicating mathematics and STEM topics to young children?
Yes, absolutely. One thing is passion. You have to love what you do to inspire others, right? So what I really liked from my high school teachers was, one, they cared and they were passionate about what they did. They brought joy to the class, you know, like they literally lit up the classroom with an idea, and we were freely to discuss, and there wasn't any restricting, like there wasn't any oh, you got the answer wrong, therefore that's bad. You know, it was open for discussion, and I really enjoyed like topics that was open problem. And mathematics, although sometimes it seems to be a black and white answer, but at the end of the day, there's thousands of ways to get the same answer, arrive at the same answer. That's why I think mathematics is colorful.
Yeah, wow.
And that's what they showed to me. And I can only talk from the perspective of a mathematics, because that's what I really like.
Yeah, wow, okay. So let's continue with your story. So you got out of high school, and then you studied at university.
Yep.
And you said you did a Bachelor of Mathematics.
Yep.
Is that always what you wanted to do? So when did you fall in love with math so much?
Oh, that is a great question, Vijay. I'm a late bloomer. Like you sometimes I hear stories of my colleagues saying that they from early young age, but when I fell with mathematics was in year 11.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, you know what, in year 11, we did the quadratic formula, right, or in year 10. But in one of the textbooks in the Hayes books, which is the books we study in year 11, there was this page called, "Can you prove the quadratic formula from completing the square?" And then I used to love those textbooks. I did that question, right? And it took me hours. I couldn't figure it out. But in mathematics, you ever get that euphoria moment where everything clicks and you're like, oh, I get that. And then that at that moment, that was when I fell in love with mathematics, is that euphoria moment, right? It was such a difficult and challenging question for me at that time. But it's diving, facing the challenge and overcoming it, and getting that such a good feeling, that moment of euphoria that I'm always addicted to until this day.
Wow.
Even today, I'm addicted to that feeling.
Yeah.
Solving such a hard problem and really arriving at an answer that everybody is in agreement.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that you love math so much, and you found passion in doing something that you enjoy so much.
Yeah.
Going into university, there's probably a lot of people that are starting university in that degree, the Bachelor of Mathematics right now.
Yeah.
What advice would you think you would have given to yourself at the start of university about your degree? Something that you wish you would have known when you straight out of high school?
I would actually, that's a great question. I think what I would actually tell myself is can I say one thing or two?
You can say two things.
Two things.
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. One
is
take advantage of the social aspect of university. University is not only just about studying. It's about making friends and enjoying the process, not just finishing your degree. You know, make friends, get out of your comfort zone, go to the events that you normally won't go to, and just have fun.
Why do you think that's important?
Oh, because it's why we go to university, right? To get a better life, to enjoy life at its fullest. And if you're going through university, might as well. University is one of those great places in the world that you can have a great time as well as be mentally stimulated. And another advice I would give to myself is study strategically. Study strategically.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
From a tutor's perspective and a person who actually teaches it, like tutors at university, many of the courses at university are designed in a way that they're self-contained. You don't need to do research. For example, they give you like a calculus question. Basically, a very similar question has been shown either in your workshop from last week or in your notes. And just look at your notes and you figure it out. Don't go out and do research because that takes a lot of effort. Everything is self-contained, and study strategically to get that high D or get that good grade.
Yeah, okay.
That's what I've been telling many of my students is study strategically.
Yeah.
Because university is hard, not gonna lie, but if you study strategically, it might make your life a lot easier.
So you said you were a tutor at university as well.
That's right.
You are currently?
Yes,
that's
still,
right.
Yep, for 3.5 years.
Okay, that's great. So you've obviously seen students succeed, you've seen students fail, and you've seen how they work and how their brains work and how they think as well.
Yeah.
What are some common mistakes that you see a lot that students make when they are not studying strategically? Could you explain, you said study strategically, right?
Yep.
So how are students not studying? What are they doing that's wrong currently?
They're doing the same mistake as I made when I was an undergrad. Sometimes they're just trying to solve problems. Like one is they don't manage their time properly. So for example, in one assignment they do really well, and in another assignment they sometimes hand half of it up or just don't hand it up. So you're gonna spread your time out thin and well. So time management, and also being able to sometimes just ask for help. Go to consultation, Go to consultation, ask for help. That's something that I didn't know until I was in third year. Like, take advantage of the resources you have. When I did first year university, I just went like full-headed and just like did everything myself. Didn't ask for help, and to be honest, I didn't do that great. And it was only later when I had that epiphany that, so that's how it's supposed to be done. It's not supposed to be this hard. Sort of moments, it's learning how to learn.
I think so.
Learning how to learn.
I think it's good that you got that in second year, because I feel like I only got that in fourth year. It took me a while to figure that out. I was really by myself the whole time, and I'm like, why is this so hard? Why is everyone around me doing so well?
That's right.
But talking to Ben, same advice. Same advice. Not the study strategically, and the self-contained is a really good piece of information that when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Yes. No one explicitly says that very often.
And then another advice is put yourself in the position of a lecturer. For example, what I mean by that is, what's going to be in the exam? You don't know, but you can predict almost. It's like, for example, a lecturer was hamping about this problem every single lecture. You know it's bound to be in the exam, right? And then you see past exams and you see that, this question pops up every year. Well, probably will come up in your exam, right? So it's about seeing these these patterns repeat, and also getting advice from seniors. And what I mean by that is go join a student society. So if you're in engineering, join the engineering society. If I'm in mathematics, join ORMS, the other University Mathematics Society. And in there, you get to join a committee. And I was privileged to be part of a committee for 2 years, and I learned so much out of that. The extracurricular volunteering, I think, is so crucial for success outside of university. And what I mean by that is, for example, you get to talk to seniors above you. For example, people studying their PhDs, their masters, as well as people studying above you, to get their advice, their personal advice, because they've done the courses most recent. They have the most recent up to advice, and they can give you like one-to-one advice. And because you're all in it together, right, to make the society beneficial and for your fellow peers. And another thing beneficial about joining a student society, I think, as an undergrad, is the fact that you learn so much useful skills you learn at the job. For example, being able to communicate in a team, being able to face challenges as a team, and being able to plan. For example, you have your weekly meetings, right? Somebody's going to take notes. The secretary is going to take notes. The president's going to plan. The vice president is going to support, and the committee is going to discuss. Things like that is just so crucial.
I think so.
And these examples are what really the HR lady, for example, or man at the hiring is sometimes what they look for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Literally.
I think that's
something to put on the CV that highlights you, makes you stand out.
Yeah. No, I think that's very true. You gave some really good advice there. I had a question that I don't know, maybe you have the answer to. It's going to be an interesting one. We'll see if you have anything.
I'll try and do my best.
Exactly. So you've obviously seen a lot of students, like I said before.
Yep.
When you have a new year starting,
yep.
And you see a whole bunch of fresh faces,
yep.
and you go through that first tutorial,
yep.
or that second week's tutorial,
yep. Yep.
and you kind of have an idea of all the people around them.
Yep.
Are there any key traits that you see in the really successful students compared to the ones that aren't as successful
yes.
in those tutorials?
Yes. One of the key things is preparation. Preparation is key.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is the good students, they actually, the really, really high HD students getting the top 90s or 100s, what they do in my classes anyways, they already done the tutorial beforehand and they ask the questions that sometimes make me scratch my head, those really good students. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have those that don't even know where to find the tutorial sheet.
Yeah.
You see the polarizing effect of you don't even know where to find the question versus you have done every single question in the practice sheet, yet you want more. So that's a key difference.
Yeah.
It's preparation is key.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
So you've given a lot of good tips for the student side. I wanted to talk, if you're comfortable, a little bit about the staffing side.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of being a tutor.
Yep.
I know not from personal experience, I've never been employed by the university, but I have a lot of friends that's done things like pass and been tutors, done marking.
Yep.
Do you feel like the university under-resources the tutors, as in, is there enough for the amount of work that needs to get done regarding marking and reports, and is the time pressure a bit too high, or do you think it's fair in the amount
I
of
think
work
it's quite fair. It's quite generous. For example, if you get your marking done at this particular hour, then you log in as that hour. It's quite a fair system. Yeah, I think overall it's quite a fair system, and it provides us students a good opportunity to one, learn how to communicate our learnings, and two, provide financial support. I think it's a win-win situation for both parties.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad that you enjoy being employed.
Yeah.
That's a really good opportunity that you have.
It's a wonderful opportunity.
Yeah,
absolutely
amazing.
wonderful.
And what you said is so true. I mean, the best way to sharpen your own knowledge sometimes is to teach it to others.
Absolutely. And going off that, that's another advice I would give to my younger self is be a teacher. Literally to your classmate. If you know a concept that you pick up quite easily, teach it to them. If they struggle with it, it makes the connection in your brain click and makes the dot join, and it helps you learn. Be a teacher.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the other strong suggestions I would give to my younger self and a person starting university. Be a teacher to your peers.
That's a really, really good point.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that section about all the way up to you doing your PhD.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that process of starting a PhD in general. Or did you always know you wanted to do a PhD?
I think I did remember that quote. I said,
yes.
I want to be a university professor. To be a university professor, you have to be a doctor.
That's a requirement. Yes, right. I see that. How did you decide what you were going to do your PhD in? And could you talk a little bit about
I didn't.
Oh, okay.
I had zero clue. It was same as me coming from high school to university. I had zero idea what mathematics was about. It's same thing as me going from undergrad to postgrad. Zero idea. But you know what's the key to successful as to starting your postgrad degree? No. Not the topic, but your supervisor.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Your supervisor plays a monumental role because, for example, a lot of the problems solved in mathematics can be viewed from it's not the problem you solve during your PhD. It's how you know how to research. That's what you learn from a PhD. You become a researcher, not somebody who knows about yeast, for example. And so how I came across I started off doing a Master's of Philosophy and then I upgraded to a PhD. So that was my process. We can talk about that later if you're interested. But I started with my PhD just emailing, just knocking on doors of professors and emailing. Just emailing them out very sincerely and very politely, be like, can I book a time with you to chat about any potential projects? And I almost got everybody replied. Everybody in the School of Maths was wonderful. They all replied. But when it came to it, I found that my supervisor was the most sincere person, had the most, provided the most consolidated and most realistic project that I could think of. And consequent one of the things that was, I guess, is luck is at that time in year 3, in my 3rd year of university, I came across this thing called Conway's Game of Life.
Okay.
It's like the simulation that's really simple. If you Google it right now, the people at home, it's a wonderful, wonderful little simulation. And then I've coded that algorithm on the way on the bus home, basically, in my 3rd year. And consequently, my current campus supervisor, was a specialist in cellular automata models, which is Conway's Game of Life.
Could you explain what that is?
Yeah, so Conway's Game of Life is literally trying to model cells on a grid. So like making everything discrete, like into for example, we divide this table into like a square, right? And we pretend black are cells and anything white is not a cell. And they have 3 rules, and then those 3 rules basically determine whether a cell is black or white. And then given any initial condition, they generate these really, really intrinsic patterns. Hopefully I painted a slight picture in your head there. Yeah. So it's like an on and off switch, you can imagine, right? And then basically my supervisor, he did a lot of research into that area, and that sort of linked me to that area of research, which was cellular automata under the general umbrella term. And in 3rd year, we do a research project, and consequently, he was my supervisor for research project. So everything really just clicked, and I was like, Ben, I really want to do my MPhil with you, and he was more than happy to take me on. And 3 years later, here I am, onto a PhD.
Wow, yeah. There you go. I want to go into what you're doing in your PhD as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I did want to talk about this as well beforehand, ask you a question, because so I obviously graduated with mechanical engineering, or mechatronics in particular. At the end of our honors project, our supervisor also advised us of the option to do a PhD.
That's right.
For me, it was not the right thing because I wanted to get into industry.
That's right.
I'm more of a doer than a thinker. Personally,
you'd be surprised how much doing I do in the PhD.
I'm excited to learn about that. But that was exactly what my question was around, which is that from your experience and from what you've seen, what kind of person makes a good PhD?
A PhD candidate, for example.
PhD candidate.
Yeah.
And what kind of person do you think it's not suited for?
So how about I answer from the perspective of what makes a good, and then I'll let the audience judge what's a bad.
Okay. Okay.
So what makes a really good PhD candidate? One, you're curious. You're curious into the fact that you want to know the why of things. For example, why does that cell grow into that particular pattern in my case? Why does like for example, engineering, I'm not sure, like you must ask whys all the time, right? Everybody asks whys, but in the PhD, from my perspective, take that further, you go ahead and answer the whys. Like, for example, why does that cell grow? Is it because of that particular shape of that cell, or is it of that particular, how much food it has, or how much like external influence or pressure it has? So and then you have to be like being able to have grit. Perseverance and grit is so crucial for a PhD. I mean, like it's doing PhD is doing the ordinary things every day, which makes it extraordinary. And at the end, you become a resilient person. Yeah. So a PhD it's not, you don't have to be super smart to a PhD. That's misleading. And I guess what I'm trying to say is,
why do you say that? Because the audience would think that you brushed over that very quickly, but you said you don't have to be super smart to do a PhD.
That's right.
When 99% of people think of a PhD candidate, they think of the top 0.1% of the population. Right? So can you explain that stigma and explain why that might not generally be true?
Yeah. For example, you could have a child prodigy, right? But he or she is not hardworking. And then they have all these great ideas, yet they're not doers, they're thinkers, or they just don't do things. I mean, at the end of the day, that's not going to lead you anywhere, right? So, but whereas if you're a hardworking person that's very perseverance every day, you tackle the problem every day, 9 to 5, you do it every single day, you're bound to persevere. And plus, a PhD is not alone. It takes a team, a whole village to produce a PhD candidate. You have to know.
Wow.
Like you got your supervisor, your supervisor panel. You got your peers who are sometimes, most of the time, doing related research to yours. And then you have, for example, other lecturers in your school doing similar things. And you also go to conferences, meet people that are in your expert fields, and then you also read papers about people doing similar things. Then you can email them and contact them, which I have done. So it takes a whole village to produce a PhD candidate, and it's never a lonely process. But it's all about, I feel like it takes maybe 10%, 10% intelligence and 90% will and perseverance and grit to do a PhD.
That's a fresh perspective because I haven't heard that before. Yeah. That's really, thank you for sharing that.
No problem.
I want to talk about, so obviously you've explained kind of the type of person that can do a PhD. Mm-hmm. Generally, because again, most people either just know of someone that does a PhD, they haven't heard deep into this topic. What is the benefit of doing a PhD?
That is a great question. I don't think I can cover it best, but I give my best perspective is doing a PhD makes you. This is such a cheesy saying. It makes you a critical thinker. No matter which PhD you do, it makes you question things, makes you become a researcher. So one, it makes you question, right? It makes you, for example, for example, Bijan, you work in industry, right? You use, for example, you're trying to solve this problem, right? And your client comes along with this problem, and then you're trying to decipher really what their problem is, right? You have to question them, right? It's about asking the right questions. Would you not agree? It's asking about the right questions and being able to, and that's one of the things a PhD tells you. Is like you're doing something that somebody's never ever done before, right? Most of the time. So you have to ask the right question. Otherwise, you're just going on the random tangents here and there, right? Going down the rabbit hole. And another thing is it makes you think critically to the fact that it makes you break a problem into doable parts. So you're trying to build on you're standing on the shore of giants literally and trying to build on existing knowledge, right? So you have to extract and understand all the existing knowledge and then build on top of it. And then making even incremental process in a PhD requires you to be able to break big problems into little problems and how to solve these little problems and join them back to a bigger problem.
Yeah.
So problem solvers.
Yeah. I want to go off something you just said there as my next question.
Absolutely.
Maybe one misconception, or maybe it's true. When I think of what you said, which was you're doing something that no one has ever done before.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think back, and I think this is naivety speaking, or ignorance, but have you ever thought back and go, Isaac Newton, an apple dropped in his head and he thought, wow, gravity.
Yeah.
Why didn't that seems so easy? Yeah. Or you think of someone that created an invention 200 years ago. And at the time, technology was so limited that it was easy to make inventions, right?
That's right.
And so, because there was just not as many things that have been discovered. So do you ever think it's getting harder and harder to discover new things? And do you think that the amount of questions is smaller than it used to be 200 years ago? Because that's what I always think, everything's already been discovered. What else is there? When was the last breakthrough in physics compared to look at how many breakthroughs in physics in the last decade compared to 200 years ago?
That's an absolute great question, a great pondering thing to ponder. I believe there's a lot more to be discovered. And why I say that is there's for example, it takes 1,000 failures to produce one success. I think Edison said something along those lines, right? It like for example, just taking it back to reality and what I do every day, right? For example, the methods I use and the strategies I apply, many of the times they don't work. We just explore. We're explorers with consciousness and intelligence. We literally, when I'm doing my PhD, I think of myself as somebody sailing on the great ocean of knowledge and just exploring. And then I'm just exploring, finding new land, basically, right? If that paints a picture in your head. And what really, so it sometimes, so I think your question was that, was the question? Sorry.
Are the questions running out? Like you said, a PhD is asking why.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But there are only so many questions.
Yeah.
And there's only so many things that are to be discovered.
I think once you solve one problem, once you got one answer, you have 1,000 more questions.
Yeah.
That's always the reality I find. Once you solve one problem, 1,000 more problems appear.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we just had a chat about PhD process in general.
Yep.
I've been trying to keep it a bit general because I want to give the audience really good information about what a PhD is. Let's break some stigmas. Let's give some context, behind the scenes information.
Yep.
But now I want to dive a bit deeper into what you do specifically. So could you explain to me what exactly your PhD is on?
Yep.
And then we'll go from there. So let's start there.
Absolutely.
Tell me what you do. What you're researching.
So like I said at the very beginning, I'm a mathematical biologist. So let me break that down for you. So what do I do? So I work in the field of mathematics. I'm an applied mathematician, and I use tools and techniques from mathematics to tackle and solve problems in biology. And how I do that on a daily basis is my supervisors and I collaborate with biologists at the Wake campus and in the UK. They provide us with experimental data. And a lot of these data, the biologists sort of just observe, but they don't know exactly what causes the shape and structures of a particular, like a cluster of cells, for example. And that's where our mathematics can help, is finding patterns in, for example, in things that can't be just looked at, for example. And I tackle that problem from 3 different levels. From just cells reproducing on a micro scale to colony level, which is the macro scale. So hopefully you guys understand the micro level and the macro level, as well as population level. In terms of population level, what I mean by that is what happens if you have thousands of these colonies. What I mean by colonies is like one colony is formed from thousands and millions, like maybe not millions, but millions of cells, let's take it. That forms a colony. And what happens if you have thousands of colonies? That's population level. That's what I mean by population level. Yeah. And then I use mathematical tools ranging from differential equations, which is calculus, from statistical analysis, all the way down to simulating cells, like literally on my computer, one cell corresponds to one cell on the computer in the experiment.
Wow.
And trying to understand exactly what is causing the growth of these processes. Yeah. And in a PhD, you have to find a niche area to work on, and the niche area I work on is in yeast, like I said before. So yeast is a microbe that basically is the fermentation process of wine and bread. You can find it. But one thing I would like to highlight is yeast is a lot more than that. So yeast is actually a microbe that's called a eukaryotic cell. A lot of us learn it's basically plant animal cells are eukaryotic, right? And they're the lab rats of the microbial world.
Oh, wow.
So that's something interesting, right? A lot of people didn't know about that. So for example, yeast, you can get out of a pantry, right? Some of the yeast, right? But there's different special strands of yeast. There's like over 1,000 strands of yeast out there. And then in the lab, you can perform experiments on yeast, right? And then you should observe a similar behavior or similar behavior in the other cells, such as eukaryotic cells.
Okay.
So that's what I do on a daily basis, trying to understand how cells grow.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Could you explain? So obviously you've given a lot of low-level technical information here.
Yeah.
Not everyone will be able to understand and catch up to that. I do want to ask you, where can you see real life application, and why is your research important, and how will it actually affect the world from a high level? Let's try to use language that the average person, layman's terms, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the most important thing, right? Getting the public to be aware of your research. Well, how does my research going to apply, for example, to you, Bijan, when you go to the pub? Well, how do you make your beer taste better? Through the fermentation process, right? That's one of the key things, right, in making good quality beverages is through the fermentation process. That's one key example. How to make your beer and wine taste better. How do you make your bread rise quicker?
Because you're looking at the reproduction of yeast.
Yes,
which is what causes the fermentation.
Yeah, that's right.
So are you trying to optimize the fermentation? Is that
no? Because
you're trying to observe.
We're just like solving problems, breaking it down to its fundamental components, and then it's hundreds of fundamental components that really brings a rise to like a big discovery.
It's funny. It's really interesting because it shows our differences as an engineer and a researcher. Yeah. Because when you explain the topic, I immediately went to optimize.
Yes.
Where yours just sticking with the why of something that's happening straight away.
Yes.
We'll just give it 1 sec. Okay, that's really fine.
That's all right.
Yeah. So I thought it was really interesting because like
perspective,
our brains think differently. I'm like, how can we use this? What are we doing? What's the end goal? You're like, no, I don't. Let's not worry about the end goal. Let's just sort of figure this out. Understand it better.
Yeah, but that's right.
Yeah.
It's a bit different because we're used to different environments, right? For example, you as an engineer, you would have a product at the end of your cycle, right? Your work cycle, and then whereas me at the end of my work cycle, let's call it, I would have a publication if I discovered something great.
Yeah. Wow. And how did you why did you pick this topic? Or did your professor or your supervisor pick it for you? Or
no,
how did that work?
If I could pick let's go back to when I started masters, given my current understanding of the field, I would not pick any other field apart from mathematical biology.
Why is that?
It's because it's such a beautiful combination of infusing mathematics with something that is so complex, such as biology, right? It's literally applying something so abstract to something yet so present in our lives. Biology is everywhere, right? It's literally joining bridges across worlds.
Yeah.
That's what I love about it.
That's amazing. And over the last so you said you're third year into your PhD now?
That's right.
How long does a PhD last, by the way?
So it varies, but typically 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
3 to 4 years.
I see. So over the last 3 years, or last 2 years, what's something that you've actually learnt through your research?
Wow.
So you can share with us.
A lot. Let's put it that way. A lot. I'll only name a few to this
Yes,
day.
please. Okay.
Is for example, I learned to be able to from a personal level how to cope with stress. I mean, everybody has to cope with stress, right? A PhD is a stressful time. And then you have to manage, for example, what you can take on and what you can't. So that's on a personal level. And another thing is on a technical level, I learned just from solving a very niche problem, you be able to use so many tools out there to, for example, I analyze images, right? I have this colony growing vertically upwards, and I'm trying to track the position of the front of the cells, right? And I use these computer algorithms from machine learning, like computer vision tracking algorithms to track that front, and how that can be transferred to real life. For example, is object tracking. For example, even in defense, or if you're tracking missiles, for example. That's the same problem casted on a new domain. And as mathematicians, I think we are able to bring that skill to a lot of problems, or even engineers can bring that skill to a lot of problems, because you're just mapping a new problem to a domain that you know and that you specialize in, and map it back to that problem. So that's one thing that I really cherished and really value from my PhD experience, is being able to identify problems and map them to fields that I have specialty and expertise in.
Yeah. And is mathematical biology a new field?
It is a relatively new field.
Yeah. Are you one of the first?
I'm not a first. I'm like I would say like maybe the 10th generation, maybe.
Yeah.
That might be. Yeah, I think there's a lot of pioneers before me, who has done mathematical biology.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. And so you mentioned something interesting before about the application of what you are doing. For example, like you said, with tracking, right?
Yep.
And when we talk about PhDs and we talk about research, something that always comes up is when you compare research to industry. And there's always been this, I don't know, a shift or
like
some kind of tension and divide between industry and...
like a segregation between
Yeah, exactly, right? And
like
so...
a divide.
Exactly.
A divide.
And oftentimes it's because from industry, from an industry background, I might say from the opinions that I've heard that, research nothing gets done. It's just slow and it's not applicable and practical. Where would you tackle that stigma and say, what, or if it's true, what is the reason for that? Why is research so slow, and why is university so behind? Maybe that's not true as well. Maybe that's just from my perspective and from what I've seen.
I don't think university is behind. I think industry and university, if anything, is parallel. It's just the different questions, going back to my previous point, is that we tackle. It's like the different questions, sometimes our goals and aims are just different. And sometimes, for example, in university, we want to answer the fundamental questions, whereas in industry, you just want a product or a project that actually just solves your problem. So I think that's one of the differences, why there's a gap between research and like applying it in industry. And also and we face different challenges. For example, industry, you might be more project or focused or like client focused, whereas in university you're more like discovery, like want to find something very new, whereas in industry you're just using existing things, right? So that's one thing, is in university is discovery and then finding something novel and new, and then in industry you just applying existing knowledge, right? So one doesn't exist out with the other. You can't have universities without industry. You can't have industry without university. Where's all that new research going to come in? Although there's R&D teams in industry, they're focused on even more niche problems, I would imagine, than what they do at university. And at university, if there's no support from industry, such as, for example, a lot of universities researchers rely on grants, right? Then they can't do their research because they're just not getting paid a salary. So I think one cannot exist without the other.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah. And looking at universities around the world, and obviously you're studying university in Australia here.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know some examples of how that bridge between industry and universities is built, and that difference is made smaller.
Yeah.
How is that relationship, and how is there a relationship between industry and university generally?
A relationship, yeah. So, for example, the Australian Research Council has these grants that are industry, like research grants that promote. From my perspective, I think that's what they do. Is I think like the CSIRO, they're trying to bridge the gap between industry problems and university, right? They're trying to bridge the gap. But I think there can be a lot to be done, because for example, from my perspective, I work in mathematical biology, right? I work as a biologist. And then what would be really, really ideal world is I can have access to the biologists just by knocking on their door. Hey, be like, oh, what is this colony? Why does it grow in this way? Whereas, for example, a lot of biologists sort of in the biology labs, and a lot of theoreticians, like such as myself, biologists, we can pretend as the practitioners, right? The people in industry. Like even within university, there's sort of like a bit of a segregation. And then if there's even segregation within your particular community, I mean, like there shouldn't be, there's a bigger gap between industry and that. And yes.
And you just mentioned that there's that split between theoretical knowledge and practical application.
Yeah.
Is that a big gap that you've seen?
I believe there is a gap. There's quite a big gap from my personal experience. I can't say that based on other people, right? Because just transitioning from theory to practical is like crossing a mountain. Like you being able to climb on top of a mountain and climb down. It's like a ridge, steep mountain. And there's many reasons for that. And I think linking real life, like although in many of the things that we do at university, like for example, when somebody asked me, like you interview me, right? You said that I solve real life problems in biology. But really what I do is I just trying my best to do it. Not necessarily I actually solve the problem. I'm doing my very best. And I feel like some of the connections, for example, it would be ideal for me to have the lab right next to me, right? Where I can knock on their door and be like, hey, just can we have a quick chat about the data set you just gave me? That would be great, right? That would speed up the process a lot instead of me having to email my supervisors, collaborators, and wait until like a day or two for their reply. You know, it's just that instant feedback, I think, is one of the improvements that can be had from my personal experience.
Interesting. Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Yeah. Talking about the ways that it could be better.
Yeah.
And so obviously we've talked a bit about what you do as well.
Yeah.
Bringing it back to university in general.
Yeah.
Just university in general in society actually.
Yep.
What value do you think universities provide to society? And like, why is it important to have esteemed and funding in universities and in a country?
That is, I think universities are fundamental for any success of any country. You know why? It's because education is number one, is key. Education is key. Like, for example, I'm talking about education to the level where we can actually making discoveries. For example, you said that in the past decade there has been not much discovery, right? Where does the most discovery come from? Sure, they might come from industry, but I feel like majority of the cutting edge technology, like a good portion of them come from universities, right? And that's the research component, as well as the it's just a place it's just a place to get educated, right? Where you have a highest concentration of human knowledge anywhere on human planet on that particular region, right? And then it's just a knowledge sharing place where you have freedom of speech and freedom of thought, and then you just you just learn. It's a place of learning, which is so important for humans. For us humans.
I think you mentioned something important with it's interesting when you think about universities from a people point of view. What type of people are at universities? Because oftentimes what you find is, because I think what you said is really interesting with, it is a collection of human knowledge and human expertise and just very smart people that want to push for a better future.
Push the boundaries of human knowledge.
Exactly. But I don't think it only happens in the human knowledge side. No. Because at least from my experience, and maybe you can comment on this as well, it's that what you've seen throughout history. Have you seen Oppenheimer?
I have.
You have? Yeah, then you'll know what I'm talking about. What you've seen throughout history is that along with that that desire for knowledge and pushing the boundary in the research point of view, you'll see that university students and universities are the first, university students usually are the first to speak out about political, social reforms and things that are happening in the world.
That's right.
As well. And I think, I don't know, do you have anything to say about that? Why would those two things be so linked together? That collection of human knowledge, but then also pushing the boundaries.
Yeah, because we're young, naive, and brave.
Wow.
Simple. We're young, naive, and brave. We don't know our limits. We want to test our limits, push the boundaries, and testing the water. Yeah. Sometimes we make brave choices. Sometimes we make naive choices. Sometimes we make bad decisions. But at the end of the day, we're only human, right?
That's right. Yeah, I think, and obviously for the audience that hasn't seen Oppenheimer, the reason, I think you might know the reason I brought that up is because when you see the movie, you see that Oppenheimer was very like an activist. He was there was a lot of issues with him being a communist because he would always speak up and look at the injustices in the world. And I think it's interesting how there's so much politics in university, and that's
there's
also
politics everywhere, Bijan. You should know. Office politics, that's not a word I invented right here, right? Office politics exists everywhere. I mean, politics in university, I think might, in my opinion, might be even better than industry, because industry, everybody's competing for, there's competition everywhere. Competition drives success and drives us. Yeah, so you can't avoid politics, I would say.
Yeah, that's true. I think there is politics everywhere. I think that what you said is true.
Yes.
But again, I like what you said. I think, can you say it one time? It was the reason young people...
Yeah, I can't say the exact thing because I didn't recite it.
That was really good.
People are brave, naive, and bold.
Yeah,
something along those lines.
But I think it's so true, and I think, but I think we need that.
We do. For example, how we're going to, for example, if you're going to question everything you do in life, you're not going to get too much places. Sometimes you're going to take risks, be a risk taker.
Yeah.
But do it with a grain of intelligence, I guess.
Yes, exactly. And I think from an industry point of view as well, this is why when companies love graduates, because when a graduate comes into their workplace...
Fresh ideas.
Exactly.
Yeah, fresh ideas.
You'd be surprised how many times a grad has walked in and looked at a place and immediately given so many recommendations because they've come in with fresh eyes and seen something where the people walking past that every day for the last 10 years.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah.
You know, one thing I briefly read is when you do research, don't read a lot of papers.
Really?
Isn't that counterintuitive, Bijan?
Yeah.
You know why?
Why is that?
Because you're so bounded. You become bounded. You know how they have engineers without borders, right? That's like the similar saying, right? You don't want to be bounded by what's already there. You just want to play with with your imagination. Be a kid. Be playful, and then you will never grow old.
Yeah.
Young at heart.
That's a good point. I guess also the amount of bias you would have as well.
That's
the more you know,
and you're restricting your thoughts. So you're but yeah.
Yeah. What you're saying is true. Do you think that people achieve? Because I know a lot of researchers. Obviously, what happens after a PhD? You know?
Very good question. So there's many paths you can do after a PhD, but it comes down to broadly two categories: either industry or further your career in academia. So in industry, you can do, for example, in mathematics, you can go into finance, you can go to defense, you can go to government, you can go to many other fields such as like the Bureau of Meteorology. Or you can go into academia and do a postdoc. And a postdoc is like it's like postdoctorate, literally, like after your PhD.
I didn't know there was a postdoc.
No,
can you explain what that is?
Absolutely. A postdoc is like a position, a paid position, where you get a full-time job just doing pretty much what you did for your PhD, but under less supervision. So it's like for a PhD, you're on your L plates, right? Yeah. You have somebody supervise you. Whereas on your postdoc, you have your P plates. Literally, the P must stand for P. Practicing, I had to hold your hand sometimes. You know, you can't have too much people in the car. You can't carry too many students. But then after your postdoc, you become a lecturer. You become an independent researcher, and then your P plates come off, and you just
Wow.
That's
Is that what you want to do?
Yes, that is what I want to do.
Wow. And when you said you wanted to become a lecturer at a young age, back to high school, did you know at all what you wanted to research? Did you?
No, I didn't even know what university mathematics is like.
So why did you want to be a professor in high school if you didn't even know?
Oh, good question. I guess it was, you know what it came down to? What I think a university professor is? It's a person that loves to share knowledge and can be in a position to care for somebody, for your students, for example, and being able to share knowledge. I love sharing. I really enjoy what I do every day and in sharing that, for example, with you, with my students, And yeah, that's what really drove me to have that vision.
Yeah, amazing. And so you obviously work with a lot of university professors, and you look up to them.
Of course.
Obviously you don't have to name anyone, but what do you think makes a good university professor? Yeah, and we'll let the audience decide what a bad one is. But
yeah, well, I think my supervisors, Ben Bynum and Ed Green, are the most beautiful people on planet Earth. What makes a good supervisor is they have to be human. I mean by that, it's compassionate, caring, and loving. I mean, that's the fundamentals of any human being, right? Of a decent human being. Even in industry, you want your...
That's not something I would have thought.
You want your... Why not vision? Why not?
In my head, it's like you want your supervisor to be smart.
No.
To be on top in their field.
No. Sure, if you're a machine, without feelings, yeah, of course. No, you have to know, in a PhD, you go through rough patches, and it's how you rise. It's not how you fall, it's how you rise. And sometimes the how you rise is through the support of your supervisors. Like they give you a lift.
That's amazing, because when I asked about how you picked your supervisor, you did mention you were looking for sincerity.
Sincerity, that's right. That's what I look for.
Wow.
In any, for example, in future collaborations with anybody, I look for how sincere they are, like how good of a human being they are. And then I look for their CV, for example. Some things you can't read off a CV.
Wow.
That's what the interview is for.
Yeah, that's honestly really good advice, because whether it's PhD or honors project,
that's right.
At some point in university, you have to go and select a supervisor.
That's right. That's very correct.
What do we look for?
That's right. What do we look for? Yeah. Well, we look for somebody in many fields. So I would look for the person first, them as a person. Go ask around their former students, for example. How did they treat you when they're PhD? Did they give you an ample amount of time? Did they make you feel like you belonged, like you were valued? And then go check the Google Scholar. Check their Google Scholar. They're like, do they have a good amount of accolades and good amount of publications? Is their research prosperous? And then talk to them.
Yeah.
In person.
Yeah.
Get your feelings. Get your perspective on them. I mean, those 3 steps you probably can't go wrong.
And I think at the end of your PhD or the end of your honors project, people with those kind, responsive, great feedback given, even though like they would probably have gained the most value out of that experience.
Right.
So that's amazing. Yeah, thank you for that.
No problem.
I wanted to talk a little bit about yourself, and maybe just talking to our audience now. We obviously this episode is going to be directed mostly on people that are going to pick and watch this as someone that's probably likely to go into higher education and go into a PhD, or just someone that doesn't know much about that process of doing a PhD and postdoctorate. I asked you earlier about what you would wish you'd known in your bachelor's. Could you talk a little bit about your experience in the last 2 years and what you wish you would have known at the start of your PhD to help you better prepare for that experience?
I wished that I would have not taken on so much when I first started my PhD, because I didn't know how much independent time there was in my PhD or my master's. For example, you meet with your supervisors on average 1 hour a week, and the rest of the time is just up to you to decide.
Right.
I wish that I never worked on weekends. I wish that I never worked late into the night.
When you say work, you're talking about a part-time job? Or?
No, literally, like doing research on weekends.
Oh, so you wish you didn't work as much?
No, I wish I didn't work on weekends. Taking care of my mental health. My health.
Yeah, okay.
Your health is number 1 priority.
So I'm guessing in your first year of your PhD, you think
I went all out.
Yeah.
I went all out. I just went all out. And I also wish I didn't work part-time. I had 2 part-time jobs as well. I wish I didn't have that.
Really?
Yeah.
So you would sacrifice the money that you would have maybe got?
Absolutely. Without a second doubt right now.
What was the turning point?
is the turning point is
of you like deciding you needed to calm down with
is when I had too much pressure and that I was in PhDs you go through breakdowns, right? I've been through them, and then that was the turning point. I was like, I can't handle this. I can't have a breakdown no longer. It's just not healthy for me, not healthy for the people that care about me. So you're gonna take care of yourself so that you don't want your parents or your loved ones to take care of you, right? I mean, you're a big boy, so you take care of yourself, right?
That's right. Yeah. And when you're making a good point there.
Yeah.
But did you feel like you were going to slow yourself down or not achieve as high of a grade by taking less time?
Which is fine. You have to take into acceptance sometimes in life there's a lot more things that are more important than accolades in your CV at the end of the day.
Wow. I did not expect you to say that today.
Yeah.
That's really good feedback and good advice. Wow. I think we've covered a really wide range of topics today.
Yeah.
And we have a tradition of closing off in this on the podcast. And the way we usually close off is we have a final question that we usually do.
I'll
ask you a question.
Absolutely.
And the story, the history behind this question is that we want to show our audience that it's the people that you have around you are really important, and you learn a lot from them.
Yep.
And to value your local networks. And the question is, who's a local role model for you that you have, and who's somebody in your life that you really wish, that you emulate in your day-to-day life, and that you've learned the most from.
I would name two people, one from my private life and one from my work life.
Okay.
In my private life, I would name my dad because he has overcame so much adversity and did so much for the family. So he's a role model for me as a future father figure. And in my work life, I would model myself against my supervisor, Ben Binder, because he is literally literally the model the person I want to be when I become an academic.
Yeah. Wow.
So because he's so supportive and he's so caring and he actually gets the job done and he's there 9 to 5, always there. When I knock on his door, always be like, hey Kai, come in. I mean, I just want to be that type of guy when I'll be a professor.
That's amazing. And when you talked about your dad, could you talk a little bit about what he had to overcome?
Yeah, so he was we came from a peasant family in China, right? So a very poor family that lived off the land. Like we just ate what we grew, basically. And then just imagine him coming to Australia, like they're literally like going on the other side of the world to, for a new future that he had zero clues about. It's like entering like a complete different world. His English wasn't great, and bringing his entire family here, just the amount of guts and determination he had. I would always look up to that.
That's amazing. It's always, we've talked about so many stories here of parents that have just come here and taken a big risk and sacrificed so much just for the opportunities that we have today. And we're always, when I ask this question, it's surprising how many times people mention their parents and how much people learn from them. Did you, on a personal note, do you ever feel like the older you get, the more you appreciate your parents, and how, like, when you're a kid, you don't really know the sacrifice, you don't really understand it or feel it, you know?
I think I've always I've always really appreciated my parents, but even more so once I get older.
Because you put them yourself in their shoes.
Yeah, that's right. Always put yourself in other people's shoes, and therefore you'll be more compassionate towards even the people you don't like.
Yeah, wow. Awesome. Well, again, a huge thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Honestly, I've had a really good discussion with you. You said something earlier at the start of our discussion, which was that you want to be able to communicate complex topics in a way that's easy to understand for everyone. I think that you did that today.
Thank you very much.
Really well. I can tell that the way you communicate is something that you've worked on. Honestly, just like the way you are able to capture a topic and talk about it in a way that's easy to understand. It's really, really good. I think that's going to help you a lot in the future as well.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for coming on. I think our audience learned a lot. I think I learned a lot. I could hear everyone really listening in. And just a huge thanks.
Thank you very much. Right. Pleasure being
Great.
here.
Thank you.